Hey, what's up guys, it's DBSonic here. Now originally this was going to be a possible Cell versus Mecha Sonic, or a singular robot called Matallix, but it turns out that was possibly a mistake due to the fan comics of the Fleetway comics, or the Sonic the Comic comics. How many times am I going to say comics or comic in this video? Let me know in the comments below how many times I say it, and you'll get a shout out in the next video. But there is a technically official version of Matallix in the Fleetway comics. Or should I say more of a group of Matallix. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically there's this legion of robots called the Brotherhood of the Matallix and their leader, Emperor Metallix. So I'm going to attempt to talk about that particular character along with, well, all the other characters that are connected to it and see how he stacks up against Cell from the canon of Dragon Ball. By the way, the canon is mostly the manga, but eventually I might make a gauntlet video talking about all the versions of Cell versus all the versions of Metallix, where I might even talk about anime Cell specifically and what kind of powers he has. So look forward to that. But with that being said, let's get into this video of Perfect Cell versus Emperor Metallix. You guys already must know about Cell's powers and abilities from the last two videos I've talked about him, but let's go over them very briefly as we always do. We all know in terms of raw strength, he can destroy a meteorite twice the size of planet Earth pretty effortlessly, meaning he has possible multi-planetary level strength with a punch or clench his fist or whatever you want to use to say he's strong, but he could just clench his hand and break a meteorite twice the size of planet Earth, which is kind of bonkers to think about. And in terms of power strength, we all know he gets to solar system level, although there's arguments about him possibly getting to galactic level as he was considered a threat to the entire galaxy. We know based on the speed calculation I managed to do in the last video where I do a speed recalc, Cell's maximum normal flying or movement speed is about 75,025,000 times the speed of light, which is kind of bonkers. And with the instant transmission ability, he has inaccessible speed, which also makes him pretty darn fast. He of course knows all the best martial arts in the Dragon Ball Z universe at the point in time he existed. He has subcellular regeneration abilities, key manipulation, he can absorb organic matter, but the limit is he can't absorb robotic matter, although there is the possibility he could absorb an entire being whole without just sucking their life force. He has a numerous amount of key based abilities, but he also has telekinesis from the DNA he got from Frieza and even King Cold. He also gets Zenkai boosts each time he comes back from near death from the Saiyan DNA, and he can heal and regenerate abilities from the Namekian DNA he has in his body. And in terms of weakness, he cannot survive atomic level attacks, and mentally speaking, he's very arrogant, and if he gets too arrogant or too wound up, it will get the better of him. Other than that, Cell is a very formidable opponent, but let's see how Emperor Metallix stacks up. Now here's the weird thing about Emperor Metallix. He does and doesn't have feats at the same time. It's confusing, but let me explain. Essentially, without the devices and abilities he has, he pretty much can do nothing. But since we include everything they have, I'm going to talk about his powers and abilities at the peak of his power and compare him to his Legion of Matallix, which by the way is the nickname or the name given to the Legion of Metal Sonic robots. We know as he's the Emperor, even though he doesn't seem to do much physically, he should be superior to any one single member of the Matallix army. I don't know if he's superior to the entire army or not, but there's a very high chance that he's the most powerful one there, which is why he's the Emperor. And a single Matallix can range from either mountain level or possibly planetary level, since they were a threat to both Sonic, a lot of members of the Chaotix, and even Knuckles. And you can also get this planetary or even multi-planetary level scaling, as with the Alpha device, he could metamorph or terraform both the Little Planet or the Miracle Planet and the rest of Planet Mobius. So you could argue he either has large planetary level scaling or multi-planetary level scaling with his manipulation ability. In terms of speed, again, even though he himself does not move, he is comparable to his legions who have kept up with Sonic, which bare minimum puts him at light speed level. Now whether or not you want to consider this a speed feat or more of a hacks and abilities feat, but with the Omniviewer, or the copy of the Omniviewer he managed to make, he can time travel to any point in time and change the time frame to wherever he sees fit to benefit himself, as he went back in time to make sure not only Dr. Robotnik never came to be, but he also made sure there would be no self-destruct device in himself and his Legion. This was of course changed thanks to Sonic and the Chaotix using the original Omni device to travel back in time to make sure this would happen. But I digress. I would argue the whole time travel thing is more about hacks and abilities rather than raw speed. So in terms of speed, he only gets to maybe light speed or maybe just above light speed if you want to make some certain arguments. In terms of martial arts, he might have knowledge of all of them, not only with the fact his army can go toe-to-toe with Sonic and all of his friends, but he would have access to all the world's history, meaning he would have knowledge of all the world's martial arts capabilities. And in terms of powers and abilities, my lord, he has a lot of interesting abilities. Again, he has possibly multi-planetary level terraforming abilities with the Alpha device, which could even extend to different timelines and different universes with the copy of the Omniviewer. So you could even argue he has anywhere from planetary to universal capabilities with the two devices he has, which means he can very well change the very fabric of time, space and reality based on how you want to interpret how it works. Now there does seem to be a bit of a limitation to it, as for some reason, even though yes, he changed the origin story of Robotnik and how he was created and his minions, which allowed them to no longer have the self-destruct device that was put into them by Dr. Robotnik, but made sure they would still be created by his assistant. Oh yeah, by the way, the Matallix were created by Dr. Robotnik's assistant, Grimer. So there does seem to be some kind of limitation because it didn't seem to affect Sonic and his friends for whatever reason. So it affected everyone they wanted to affect, but for some reason it didn't affect Sonic. Now I understand there are certain arguments like Sonic could not be affected by time travel thanks to the fact he already time traveled with the Time Stone, but that happened before he met Emperor Metallix, so I don't know if that's the full explanation we want or need, especially since all of his other friends have never time traveled before, so I don't know how they're not affected. But perhaps like the amazing YouTuber Jonny Vector put it, it falls back to the future rules, even though I don't think that explains it at all, but what can you do? Comics make no sense, but at absolute best, with a possibility of debate, Emperor Metallix with the copy of the Omniviewer and the Alpha device can not only terraform entire planets, but could change the very fabric of time to a certain degree. But his weakness is he can't take direct laser beams to himself or his Legion, as we find out that a lot of laser based attacks seem to hurt them a lot, and of course they have a limit to their durability, as characters like Sonic and Knuckles can damage them pretty easily when they go all out. Plus again, there's the problem of the technical self-destruct device that they technically still do have, which they could get rid of with time manipulation, but that's all due to circumstance. Also there's a possibility of them getting hacked or reprogrammed due to the fact that Knuckles forced a shutdown somehow, which means they still operate like, well, machines rather than an organism. So Emperor Metallix and his army is a very interesting thing to try and scale. You could either say they limit themselves at planetary or even get as high as the 4th dimension, as they can manipulate time with the Omniviewer. So with that in knowledge, who wins this fight? I'm gonna say if he doesn't have any of his devices, Emperor Metallix is not beating Cell. Cell is a lot stronger, a lot faster, a lot more durable, and has a lot of hacks and abilities that gives him too much of an edge. Now, with the devices, could Emperor Metallix beat Cell? There's a high chance he could, because he can terraform the planet to his liking, and he can even manipulate time to make sure Cell could not exist to a certain degree. But I would argue since it didn't work on Sonic and his friends, it might not work on Cell either. And since Cell is already a time anomaly already in the world of Dragon Ball Z, I don't think he could be erased from existence. So it all depends on how you guys see this fight. Me personally, I could see Cell using the Cell Juniors in conjunction with the multiform ability, which allows him to handle the army, which wouldn't be hard to do by himself as a singular, but so that he doesn't have to deal with an entire army by himself, he can make his own small little army with the Cell Juniors and his multiform. form. And with the fact that he can teleport, he can get right up to Emperor Metallix and just start wailing on him before Metallix has a chance to react. Because don't forget, yes, he can time travel or dimension hop with the Omni Viewer. He has to purposely activate the device, meaning he has a limited time of thinking, and instantaneous movement probably goes beyond the ability of thinking. So Cell has a huge speed advantage, not only normally, but through teleportation. And with the fact that they are weak to lasers, a Kamehameha Wave is pretty much the ultimate KO move. Like, there's no way they survive a full powered blast straight to them. And if Cell somehow figures out or finds out about the self-destruct devices, he could use his telekinesis to force them to activate. So in a quick 1 minute blitz of a battle, Cell would instantly win by being just too fast and too strong. But if given enough time and preparation, Emperor Metallix might be able to manipulate events to win as well. So yeah, this is a very interesting battle. It's hacks and abilities versus power and speed and strength. I see Cell winning this fight maybe 7 to 8 times out of 10, and Emperor Metallix winning 2 to 3 times. Because again, in terms of raw power and abilities, he does not match Cell, but with all of his hacks and abilities, yeah, he definitely would have a chance of winning. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who do you think wins this fight? And maybe I got some of the scaling wrong, or maybe I missed something that could be major to the outcome of this fight. And if you stuck around to the end, I have an announcement. The next fight I will be talking about is Cell from Dragon Ball Heroes versus IDW Metal Sonic. And I want you guys to watch that video, because I'm going to make a statement in that that's going to blow your friggin' minds. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching this video. If you did like it, like, comment, and subscribe. Click the notification gong so you never miss a thing I do. And thank you all for supporting me on this journey to compete with Death Battle, to beat them to the punch to see whether or not they get this fight correct or incorrect. By the way, there's a high chance they amalgamate both characters and come up with some kind of weird hodgepodge conclusion. But with that being said, stay awesome, and as always, a Dragon Fest. Hiya!